soul.
This is Bass Talk Live. Your host, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pangrak. BTL is brought to you by Lowrance, Lose, Strike King Lures, Bass Cat Boats, Ducket Fishing, SPRO, AFCO, Big Bite Baits, Sunline, and TH Marine. BTL coming at you. Good Tuesday, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Yes, as you look to my right, my partner in crime, he is not here. I get a phone call at 5:45 a.m. this morning, and Matthew having a little vehicle issues. So he is not going to be here today, but still, we're going to have a great show. It is the 15th year anniversary of the SPRO Frog, so I thought it'd be very, very cool to get two people on the show today that are very, very instrumental in the history of the SPRO Frog. We're going to have SYD RIVES on, the North American sales manager for SPRO, and then later on in the show, we're going to have the man behind the frog, Mr. Dean Rojas, as he travels to the K-Chain in Florida for the heavy hitter. So we'll a little bit of a different show, especially with Matt not being here, but we'll see how it goes. We might even take some phone calls later on at the end of the show and get your take, the fans' take on so many things going on in the world of fishing. I want to mention a couple things real quick, do a couple of housekeeping items. The feedback that I got from the show yesterday, outstanding. I really, really appreciate a lot of the comments on the Jacob Wheeler show yesterday. And once again, folks, the amount of feedback that we are receiving from the fans is just astronomical. I'm trying to answer as many emails as I can. I know Matt is doing everything he can to answer the emails that you, the fan, sends Matt. And I actually spend part of my day each day trying to respond to emails that you guys send. So please, please keep the feedback coming. It's great to hear from you guys. And I know I mentioned last week, I'm going to have a physical address tomorrow to give to you guys to where a lot of people have requested to send us stuff. I have the address. With Matt being gone today, I was a little discombobulated, not very organized, and I do not have it in front of me. So tomorrow I will give you the address, the physical address of the stuff that you want to send or things that you might want to get to Matt or myself. We will have that address tomorrow. The other thing is, the deadline for the Apex Bass Games is June 14th. So if you haven't entered, please make sure that you go to bassown.com and enter the Apex Bass Games. And once again, Strike King and Lose, they are giving away well over $5,000 in merchandise back to the fans with this Apex Bass Games. And folks, if you listened yesterday, man, tournament season is here and things are really, really starting to get pretty crazy from the number of events that will be taking place. I know Matt's going to be extremely busy. Central Open's coming up, and the Heavy Hitters coming up, the Elite Series at Eufaula, followed up by a couple of events at the Chicks. So a ton of stuff going on in the world of professional fishing. But since Matt is not here, that just means more time for SYD RIVES. And we're going to bring him in here. Let me see if I can get this queued up real quick. And man, it's really hard doing a show by yourself because I depend so much on Matt to kind of fill the gap when I'm trying to get stuff queued up. And he does a great job at that. So now, let me see if I got SYD queued up. SYD, you there, man?
I'm here.
All right. Thank you so much. Look at that backdrop. That looks really, really cool, man.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's in our little product room back here. There's a lot of that, but what you can't see is all the clutter in the other side of the room. So I made sure the camera angle's perfect.
All right, very nice, man. Thank you so much for taking time out. I thought this would be a very, very cool show to do. Little different, and Matt and I talk all the time about iconic lures, iconic baits that have been established in the bass fishing world, and there's no argument from anybody that the frog is definitely one of those iconic baits.
Yes, I'll tell you this right now. I mean, I could go anywhere in the country. I'll tell somebody that I work for SPRO, and the first thing that I get is a frog story. It's hilarious. And it really is to know that SPRO has been a part of this and a part of making memories for people for 15 years now. It's been a really cool thing to watch. I've been here since 2006, so I wasn't here right when it hit, but I was here during the craze when we were shipping all the stuff out. It's been one of those deals that it's for me, I hope it's not once in a career type of deal, but if it is, I'll be happy with that because it's been that good.
All right, we're going to have Dean on the show later in the show, but I can't tell you how many times that when we do meet fans or we're at the Bassmaster Classic or really any other event, somebody always has a frog story. It doesn't matter. Everybody always has a story of this massive blow up or, the first time they ever caught a frogfish. The stories relating to the frog are endless.
Oh, yeah. And I think one thing that SPRO did extremely well with their frog is the marketing of the hookup percentage and that you don't lose as many fish. And you created this product that you could go out there and you could swing on them. And you don't miss quite as often. I think before, a lot of people, you'd hear the frog story of, I didn't, I swung on him and he wasn't there or whatever. With ours, we started hearing more of the success stories, which has been really cool.
All right, let's go back to the history of this thing, man. You were not there 15 years ago. You've spent 14 years with SPRO. But what can you tell the fans about the history of the frog and how this entire concept came about?
Okay, we could actually back it up a little bit further than that. We could talk about, Rojas was on the Gamakatsu USA Pro staff on the West Coast when he was living out there. He was on it for 4 or 5 years, did extremely well on the Bassmaster circuit. Gamakatsu and SPRO kind of Gamakatsu USA was out there, and then they created SPRO, and Kentaro Hara moved to the eastern part of the United States. Mm-hmm. And during that time, Rojas was let go from Gamakatsu, about 2001, 2002, something like that. And so Rojas is sitting out there on the free agent market, basically, and he starts catching them on a frog on the Bassmaster Tour, and then he does really well in the Classic. So we end up kind of seeing that and getting the idea of let's create a tournament frog, and that's where it kind of came from. And we hired Rojas on the SPRO side, and the rest is history. That's the quick story. There's a lot more to it than that if we want to get into details. I don't know if we have time.
So did Dean invent the frog, or was the frog around?
The frog was around.
Okay.
The frog's been around forever. I mean,
right.
There's different brands that have been out there for a long, long time, and it was always one of those baits that you kind of threw it in slop or something like that, and you would just reel it in, or there wasn't really the technique specific frog fishing that we have today with walking the dog and making sure that it stays in one place, and all the fishing around docks. I mean, locally, I can't tell you how many tournaments are won fishing a frog around docks on local lakes, and that type of stuff was not done until Dean created that whole market.
Let's go back a little bit to the design of it. How much influence did Dean change the frog, or was it kind of you had a concept, you had the idea, and then Dean came in and kind of refined things?
Okay, I've got a little bit of history here sitting next to me, and I didn't share this with you yet, but I do have a catalog from SPRO from 2004, 2005.
Okay.
And if you look on the cover, there's a frog, right?
Yeah.
That was the original frog that we designed with a factory in 2003, 2004. And this was like a traditional frog. It was a swimming style frog. You can see the colors. Look at the colors. Don't they look really familiar?
They do.
Yes. So this was the original frog that SPRO designed with our factory. And this was pre-Dean Rojas.
Okay.
This was pre-Dean Rojas. So we were already working on a frog at the time, and we had a frog, but it was not the correct frog. So the wheels were in motion, and then they, of course, they had Dean, and then 2005, right there, 2006, you have the Bronzeye Frog.
Okay.
Notice the colors, very similar. So, it's funny how these type of things line up, and it does. There was a plan in place, and at the time I wasn't here, of course.
Right.
They executed the plan. They did a great job. I think we could go back to somebody that didn't, two people that got some credit, but sometimes didn't get as much credit as they should, were Kentaro Hara, who was the general manager at the time. He's one of the guys that primarily worked on this. And then there was another guy, Tim Norman. And Tim had been around the industry. Tim is the one that hired Dean Rojas. And, we can't refute either one of those things or whatever, but I mean, he had a lot to do with the success that we have had as a company building on the frog. And, it's one of those deals where the groundwork was set in place to do a really good job.
When you got there and when the frenzy or whatever you want to call it around the frog happened, were you kind of blown away by the feedback from the retailers and the wholesalers and the fans and the demand that was created due to the success of the frog?
It was unbelievable. I can remember seeing orders going out of here for 50,000 frogs at a time. It was the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen, ever. And I do know that the first order, I actually had to go and look this up because I was pretty sure it was right, but then I had to go in our system and look at it. The first order that ever went out of here was on 10/11/2005, and that was to Western Plastics in California. And the funny thing about that was Western Plastics was one of Dean's first sponsors. So John Cassidy and those guys, what did they do? They were one of the first people to place an order for this product because they believed in Dean that much and believed in the product. And it's pretty cool to see that kind of stuff happen. And they were an independent retailer and an independent distributor. And they did, they sold a tremendous amount of frogs for us on that first run. And then, of course, some of the other heavy hitters in the industry after that sold a lot of frogs.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you remember really the first tournament? And I know some people on the instant feedback right now, Sid, they're saying, well, there were frogs around before the SPRO Frog and all that. All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. There were other companies that were out there doing it, but the frenzy that was created was really built up by what Dean did with the Bronzeye. Agreed?
I think so. I mean, I don't want to get in it. I don't want to make anybody else mad. I'm sure that there were guys winning tournaments on other frogs all over the place, but you didn't really hear about it like you heard about it on the big stage like Bassmaster and places like that. I'm sure somebody can find an example. I'm not trying to.
No, they bring up Bobby Barrick a lot. A lot of people bring up Bobby.
Bobby Barrick is a frog master. He is. I can't say anything bad about that guy. That guy, he can catch them. But the thing was, Bobby Barrick wasn't fishing the Bassmaster Elite Top 150s from what I remember.
Right.
And I think that's what the difference was. Dean was put on the stage to be able to show it on a tournament and a national level. And that was the first time that I ever saw a frog on the national level. That was it, was the SPRO Frog. And when I came here, I really didn't even know a frog. I mean, I didn't. I didn't know anything about it. I'd worked at Bass Pro Shops, and we had not even gotten the first shipment of frogs yet before I came over here and worked. So it was one of those deals where even at that Bass Pro Shops where I was working, I had heard that SPRO was coming out with a frog. I just didn't know anything about it. Mm-hmm. The buzz was going on at that time, and that was in 2004, 2005.
Wow. First tournament, can you remember the success that Dean had in a tournament on a frog? Can you remember what it was like after that event from a fan standpoint and the demand that was created?
Well, I guess the first one would have been, what was it, the Classic in 2004?
I think so.
2005, 2004, 2005, right around there. That's where, a lot of this stuff started the ball rolling. Now, as far as him doing well in a lot of the other tournaments, the best thing about the frog was you could see it on TV. You could sit there and you could watch the fish blow up on ESPN on the frog.
Yeah.
And there's some people that saw that and they were like, holy cow, he's fishing that in open water. What's he doing? And I think that's what really spurred it on as a product, that you could do more than just fish slop or just fish grass. You could do more things with it. And that's when people saw it on ESPN, that's what kind of sparked the whole deal.
Yeah, I agree. I have been very, very fortunate to have been in the boat with Dean several times and to get just some inside kind of behind the scenes information and tactics. But the simplistic approach for the average to above average angler when it comes to throwing the frog, it's one of the most simplest baits that you can throw from a topwater perspective.
Absolutely. You don't have to worry about it getting hung up.
I know.
I mean, what's the first thing you do when you lose a frog? I mean, you lose a topwater bait. It gets hung on a tree limb or gets hung. You make a cast and it gets caught up in the top of a tree. It happens all the time. It happens to all of us. That being said, it's also been an extremely versatile bait. We see a lot of guys, and we even do a kayak tournament now on Lake Guntersville. We see a lot of love from that community too. It's one of those deals where you can catch them so many different ways, and you don't have to worry about it getting hung up. And the worst thing in the world is if you're a kayak angler and you hang something up and you got to go paddle or drag yourself over there.
Oh, yeah.
With the frog, you just throw it and go through it.
Yeah. All right. I want to go back to those catalogs that you showed earlier in the interview real quick. The evolution of color. I mean, you mentioned it. There was a lot of color in that very first look right there. There's a lot of stuff today that is very, very close to the colors that you're showing us right now. How important is color, Sid?
Well, I think our color has done an extremely good job for our branding. Most of our guys, they're going to know these colors. I mean, rainforest black, natural green, colors like that.
Yeah.
They're going to know that for SPRO Frog. And, it might be somebody else's frog, but they're going to see those colors. That's where they came from. So for us, the colors have been very iconic. Going back to whether the fish cares about the color of the frog, I think it does make a difference to an extent. There's a lot of guys that think it doesn't, but I think it definitely does. And also I think it helps you, these really bright colors, it helps you see the frog so you know when to set the hook.
All right, let's talk about the evolution. Obviously, when Dean had success early, now all of a sudden the product starts to develop into other frog products. You have, and I don't even know if it's still around, hence that's why I'm asking you. You had like the jumbo frog, the massive frog.
Oh yeah, the King Daddy.
King Daddy, is that
man.
still around?
How can you forget that name, the King Daddy?
I hang around with Matt too much. I'm sorry, my memory's fading.
No, the King Daddy. Yes, we absolutely do. We just came out with 4 new colors in the King Daddy too. We're evolving that line even more. There's a tremendous amount of people, especially on the West Coast, that love that big frog, and the guys in Texas, all over the country, have embraced it. But one of the big areas, the first place that I ever saw it really kind of taking off, it was kind of funny. We did a tournament out at Havasu about 7 or 8 years ago. Was the first one, and it was won on a black King Daddy Bronzeye Frog, and they were fishing the bird pattern.
Wow.
Basically, blackbird pattern back then. And I just thought it was really cool. I had never seen that before. I'd heard Aaron Martins talk about it, but it was a real deal. Those guys, they literally, that's how they won the thing. It was pretty cool.
Wow. All right. What about, I've become very fond of the popping frog. When was that developed? When did that come out, and how did that come about?
Funny story about the popping frog. And we didn't even talk about this. So this is not even queued up. All right. But the funny story about the popping frog is it was designed in 2007 going into 2008. And I had some of the prototypes. And I sent them to Dean, and he put them in his truck, and he's fishing at Oneida. And I was like, he said he was catching them good on a frog. I was like, well, have you tried the popping frog yet? It was like Tuesday. And he's in practice. I was like, dude, have you tried the popping frog yet? It's brand new. I want you to try it. You're catching them on these other ones. He was like, no, I hadn't tried it yet. I need to grab it out of the truck. Well, he grabbed it out of the truck, his last practice day, fished it, didn't say a word to me, just fished it. And he ends up winning the tournament on 1-2 punch, throwing the regular frog and the popping frog. That was when he won Oneida.
Yeah. Wow.
So, it was one of those deals where it was pretty cool, and that he won it on one of the prototypes. It was not the actual product out or anything like that. I think he only had like 2 or 3 of them, and goes out and wins the tournament on it with that and the regular frog.
I remember being at a media event, and it was at Gunnersville, and Dean was there, and he goes, "Come on, Jeffries, let's go." He goes, "We're going to go catch some topwater fish." I was like, "Okay, let's go." And we run about 20 minutes, and we get there, and he starts throwing this popping frog, and I had never seen it before. And this is in open water, Sid. And I mean, we just started catching them like crazy. And I had no idea. I was really blown away, because it was one of those typical scenarios where when they're schooling like that and kind of grouped up, that you throw a spook, you throw this, you throw, a walking bait or something like that. I never even thought of throwing a popping frog for these bass that were grouped up, just busting shad on top and everything. And that was really my first exposure to the popping frog in an open water scenario, of which people do that all the time now.
Yeah, no, it's a well-accepted technique over at Gunnersville now. We do a frog tournament, and of course, all they can do is throw a frog all day long. But we do one over at Gunnersville, and usually we have a lot of boats. We'll have 200 to 300 boats at this tournament, and it's one of those deals where a lot of guys are out there doing something different, and they throw our little bitty popper 50, little Bronzeye popper 50, and that's what they do. They'll throw them on a spinning rod, and they throw it like you throw a pop R. It's hilarious.
Yeah,
and they catch them.
Yeah. All right, man. Give up some juice here. You don't have to mention names, but I am curious, over the years, how many guys on tour, I don't care what tour they're fishing, how many guys on tour even though they are sponsored by other companies, have called you and said, "Hey, man, Sid, can you hook me up, man? Can you give me some frogs? I really would like to have some frogs. Come on, man."
Yeah, I've had a lot of guys do that, and I don't care. Yes, a lot. But the thing is, that will always be between me and them. That's not something that I will never share that information. I think you'll see it when you look at them on TV, and you'll see what frog they've got in their hand. And I don't mind doing that. I think that that's all part of the game. I think that not every company makes exactly what each pro staffer wants. And another thing is, I notice in the industry right now, a lot of companies have a lot of different lines of baits, and they're expecting their pros to just throw their bait. That's a really hard deal when there's $100,000 on the line to throw something that you don't have 100% confidence in. So I see it from both sides. I see it as the company man at SPRO, but then I also see it as under the professional angler's eyes of, I'm not a professional angler, but under their eyes of, hey, look, I want to be throwing what I have the most confidence in.
Yeah. No names on that one, but
no names.
I've heard some stories, and they're hilarious.
Dean Rojas, Mike McClellan, John Cruz. Yeah, those guys.
No problem with those guys. All right.
No problem with that.
How involved over the years have you been with the development and kind of the evolution of the frog? Has it been primarily the pros? Has it been engineers? Is it a team effort? How has that worked over the years, Sid?
It's 100% team effort. It is a team effort from the pro that gives us the ideas, the design. A lot of these guys even, write on a piece of paper, a piece of graph paper, exactly what they like for us to see or like for us to build, And then, of course, we relay that information because a lot of these engineering firms and stuff like that we use don't speak English. They speak Japanese. Yeah. So, you've got to have the Japanese man here to be able to explain what's going on with the design for those products, or there could be some issues there. So, you've got your pro, your factory, which is us, and then the manufacturer who is actually making the product. We're lucky enough to have one of the best manufacturers in the world building this frog, and they are very talented at what they do. And there's other companies that use that manufacturer, but I feel like some of the success that we've had has been due to that manufacturer being able to create a consistent, good product. So it's not only the pro that comes up with the design, the factory, us, that's doing all the marketing. Also, we are also Gamakatsu hooks, so we have to provide the hooks and all that kind of stuff. So we're doing our part, and then you have to have a consistent manufacturer also. So it is 100% a team effort. No one person can do this.
What's your best frog story from an angling standpoint?
My best frog story came at a small lake in about, this was probably 2008, 2009. I don't even think I had any poppers yet. I went out to a local lake that is a 25 horsepower only lake, and I'd never heard anybody throwing frogs out there. There wasn't really that much grass, and I went out there and I caught 4 fish that were in that, probably 28, 29 pound range for my best 4. And I was like, holy cow, there really is something to this. I really had never really fished with it in a public place or anywhere other than Gunnersville or somewhere like that. Yeah. This was my first time fishing with it at a lake that I grew up fishing. That's a 25 horsepower only lake. And I mean, just massive blow ups. And from then on, heck, earlier this year, I went to that same spot and caught a 4-pounder on a popping frog. So, it's kind of funny how things kind of go full circle. But that was my favorite story, was throwing that. I mean, just taking a place that I'd fished my whole entire life, then taking a product that we built that was a relatively new product out there and catching them. That was my best frog time that I've ever had.
That's cool. That's a cool story. I'm curious. I don't know if you can answer this, but in the development of any lure, there are, prototypes and multiple runs of these baits, lures, whatever companies are creating. For the frog, what do you guys do with all the ones that don't pass the test? In other words, so many prototypes are out there. You may have a one batch or one run, and it's just not right. What happens to all those?
Well, as far as that's concerned, like I was saying, consistent manufacturing, we have not really had a whole big issue with, let's say, returns, let's say defectives.
Yeah.
But if we do have defectives, we trash them. I don't want somebody out there using an inferior product. So but if you want to go back to the prototype stage, let's go back to that one. The prototype stage where it goes do. What we really do with those a lot of times is we keep it until we get to the next level. So, it's one of those that I don't have any of the old Rojas prototypes. I think I sent him some of them a while back. Like whenever I got done with them, I'd send them to him.
Yeah.
But once we get our final set of samples and then we get our color samples, I keep those until we get our first shipment that comes in where they're correct, hopefully correct, in which they have been so far. Then I get rid of that stuff. If I didn't, it would be just stuff everywhere.
Well, the only reason I asked that, I'm curious around the office there and maybe even back in Japan, but is there any type of chronicled museum or display or some type of history about the evolution of the frog, be it from prototype to final product?
I wish I had that. I'm kicking myself. We just moved offices about a year and a half ago, and I had a lot of that stuff in there.
Yeah.
But we were in extreme time constraints, and we got rid of a lot of stuff. And it was one of those deals that I wish I would have kept some more of the stuff. But to be honest with you, there was a lot of clutter. It would have taken me a long time to do that, and we were wanting to go ahead and get moved into our new place so that we could start servicing our customers. So it was one of those deals where I had to make a decision to get rid of a lot of it.
Where do you see the frog 15 years from now, Sid?
I think we're going to continue to see an evolution in the frog. We're actually working on some new designs right now, new materials, new hook materials, a lot of new stuff that's coming for the frog. I think you're going to, like I said, I think you're going to continue to see it evolution going. That being said, the SPRO Bronzeye Frog hopefully will still be around. I mean, stranger things have happened, but I don't see it going anywhere.
All right, who came up with the look of the eye on the frog?
Well, I think Dean had a lot to do with that. I was not here for that, so I'm not totally positive. Dean had a lot to do with that, and so did, I believe, Kentaro Hara. I think he was the guy that came up with the name, the Bronzeye, and all that kind of stuff. That was, from what I remember, that was a lot of what happened.
That's cool.
What I remember and what I was told.
Yeah, I mean, it's very defining. Yeah, no, it's extremely defining on the bait. Absolutely. You look at it, that's the first thing, obviously the color, but the first distinct characteristic about that frog is the eyes.
It's the eye and the lines.
Yeah.
Look at the lines on the back and the eye and everything. It really, really pops. I think you really, the shape is in the eye and everything else is an iconic shape and eye. And we've been lucky enough at SPRO to have 2 baits that were like that. Our first one is our SPRO bucktail jig. And a lot of guys in bass fishing don't really know it, but in saltwater fishing, it is a very well-known product. And that SPRO minnow-shaped head is very, very popular. And now we have, that was before the frog. And then now in freshwater, we have the frog that has this iconic shape too. So we've been extremely blessed over here to have 2 or 3 product lines that have done extremely well for us.
All right, on all the frogs, the legs, the leg material, you guys purposely make them extremely long. Basically, that's so the angler, the fan, the buyer can really kind of taper that to whatever their needs are. What do you do? I'm really curious. Is it a condition thing? Do you trim them up short based upon time of the year, based upon, what the conditions are, the cover that you're fishing? You hear so many stories about what people do to the legs that everybody has their own opinion.
Yeah, I've seen it where, I revert back to Rojas, our pro on that one. I'm not a professional fisherman. I do love to fish. Fish a good bit, but it's one of those deals where I'll revert to what Rojas has taught me from fishing with him, and what he does is he takes the legs and moves them back up to the eye of the hook and cuts them right there. I think that's the best all-around way to fish it. I've seen some guys that'll cut one side shorter than the other side, saying it helps them walk to a certain condition better or whatever. I don't know about that. Another one that a lot of guys like to do, especially over on Gunnersville, is they'll take those legs out and replace the legs with rattles. I've seen a lot of guys doing that, which is illegal in the SPRO tournaments, by the way. You can't do that. Which I revert back to, that is illegal in the SPRO tournament as of the last 5 years. Yeah. So don't know if you fished with us, like 7 or 8 years ago and you did it, it's okay. Yeah. But now it is illegal. That being said, as far as the frog, I think the way that we design this frog is the average angler can take it out of the package and throw it. That's the quick answer is that one. You can trick it out any way you want to, whatever makes you feel like is going to give you more confidence in it. I know a lot of guys, they bend the hooks up on them. Then I get guys asking me, well, why didn't you bend the hooks out on them in the first place? The problem with that is if you're fishing pads and stems, the hook will get caught in the pads and stems. Yeah. So we put it as close to the body as we can, just so it'll come through cover.
How often do you have fans send you pictures?
Oh my goodness, every day.
Really?
Every day, and we love it. We absolutely love it. I give a lot of those to Dave Rush and those guys, and they help us with a lot of the media. And a lot of them, actually, it's funny. One of our fans on Instagram takes some really cool shots. Well, guess what? We use that in an advertisement. I got permission from him, of course, and sent him a couple extra frogs. But he let us use that in an advertisement. So we really do. We love our fans. We pay attention to them. If we didn't have fans, I wouldn't have a job. I'll be honest with you. It's one of those deals that I enjoy what I do, and we enjoy what we do here at SPRO as a team. And without this outpouring of love from all these guys, we wouldn't have a job. It's awesome.
All right, so many times on this show, I really dive into the business side of it, and I know we're really focused on the frog, but you having been in the industry for so many years, with what we are going through from a COVID standpoint and the retail and logistics distribution on a lot of items. I talked about on the show yesterday, there's a number of aisles in academies and Bass Pro Shops. I had fans send me information and photos yesterday about empty shelves. What can you say about either things are going to get better from a supply chain standpoint, or this is something that it's just a distribution, it's an inventory situation, or can we expect those shelves to fill up fairly quickly?
Mark, it depends on who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
If I'm talking to the consumer, it's one of those deals where you got to realize that there's a lot of big companies out there, and they've had a massive rush on their stores for the last, month and a half, 2 months. Some of them were closed before that. And, their distribution systems and their pipelines are depleted. That being said, I think on our side, we are about a week and a half to 2 weeks out on shipping right now. And we've been hit extremely hard with all this. And it's been great. I mean, as far as the business side, our business has been doing really well. I think we're seeing a lot of kids fishing right now. They don't have organized sports, which I'm a big proponent of organized sports. I think learning to play as a team is great. I encourage all kids to play sports. But right now they can't play sports. So what are they doing? They're going fishing in their local ponds. They're buying John boats. They're doing a lot of the stuff that I did as a kid. And that being said, that I think we're seeing a massive rush on fishing tackle at any of the stores that can keep it in. Live bait sales right now are through the roof. It's been unbelievable. It's been one of the best live bait years in history, I think, this year. Terminal tackle sales have been incredibly well. Bait sales have been incredible. That being said, I think that the lag that we're seeing is from the factory, like us, to the retailer. I think that you're seeing that lag of the factories are backed up a couple weeks. Some of them are backed up further than that. And then the logistical aspect of it going to a distribution center for the retailer and then distribution center to the retail shop. So you've got 2 or 3 weeks in there that's where a lot of that lag, and it takes some time to react to that. I feel for those guys. I really do.
Yeah, I was in shock. I was in Academy over the weekend, and for the first time that I can ever remember, walking down an aisle and seeing like one pack here, one pack there of soft plastics, and that's it. That's all there was in the entire store, Sid.
Well, it's like a doomsday scenario for fishing tackle right now. You can't find anything.
Jeez, it's like lizards or toilet paper, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Zoom would really enjoy that, but I really think that, like I said, a lot of it is just due to them catching up. And I know with that company that you just mentioned, they have been placing some rather large orders with us for the last 2 weeks, and hopefully you will see your SPRO and your Gamakatsu in there. If not this week, then very soon.
All right.
I know that we shipped last week or the week before, and they've gotten aggressive, and they've moved around some inventory dollars, and they're buying fishing tackle. Let's just put it that way. So don't lose faith in that retailer.
Yeah, they're buying it all right. Good grief.
Yeah, they sure are.
There's nothing left. Anyway, the last question I want to ask you is kind of related to you being involved in this industry. And I've heard numerous discussions from industry people about the way that they feel that the pro staff dynamic could potentially change going into 2021. And what I mean by that is the importance, and then flipped around, the lack of importance of a pro staff could shift the dynamic on how pro staffs are utilized in the future. What are your thoughts? You have one of the top pro staffs in the industry. What are your thoughts about the future of pro staff, Sid?
That's a hard one. I can't really look into a crystal ball right now and tell you, but I think it could go really good for them, or it could go not so good for them as far as this. So let's take a couple of scenarios. We missed the first part of the tournament season for the most part. There were a couple tournaments, but you could say the lion's share of the tournaments are usually in the springtime when fish and tackle sales are at their best.
Yeah.
We had an unbelievable spring this year, so a lot of people are going to look at that and go, "Well, that's awesome." Well, if we have an unbelievable summer and it's all based around these tournaments and the pros are out there and they're doing really well and they're helping us sell a lot of products and promoting the products, and we have a great summer that has typically been kind of July, August, September has kind of been a lower period of time. If we see a big spike in sales around that time, I think that companies are going to realize that, hey, it was important to have these guys fish in the tournaments. If you don't, then that might be another scenario that you say, is it the time of year or is it the pro staff? I'm just playing devil's advocate. I know what I believe. I love our pros. I want to keep our pros. I want to keep them on with us. We've designed our model around a lot of their designs, and they've had a lot to do with our success. But I'm just playing devil's advocate. If we don't have a good late summer, fall, or if it's pretty much status quo, the same as it was before, I think you'll have a lot of a lot of companies question and pro staff, which I don't think that's a good thing. I'm just saying, I just think that that's reality.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. All right, one quick question from the instant feedback. Blake in Georgia wants to know, what is the craziest color of a frog that never made it to retail?
Oh, goodness. We had one time that was, and we couldn't figure out how to do it with the material, but we had some that were like furry. It was almost felt like velvet.
Really?
And there was like a hot chartreuse velvet frog. It was pretty awesome. But that was probably the craziest one, that color and texture.
Yeah.
You expect the same texture out of a frog, but this one was like furry. That one, and we've had some that were hot pink. That was another one, hot pink, and I think they'd eat it. I think smallmouth guys up on the upper Mississippi would probably like a hot pink colored frog to go along with their bubblegum colored TRDs or whatever.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's wow. Velvet. A velvet
the
frog.
Velveteen frog.
I'd like to see that, man. You don't have any of those prototypes sitting around, do you?
No, I don't. I really don't. Those didn't make the cut. The problem with at the time, the problem we had with the velvet is anytime you throw it in like wart, like pond wart and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Dude, it sticks off. any kind of stuff just sticks right to the outside of it. And you just come in bringing in a big. It's almost like Velcro. It sticks to everything.
Wow. All right, Sid. Final question: are there any plans to celebrate the 15th year anniversary on the Frog? Are you going to be running any specials? Are you giving like Dean a plaque? I mean, you got anything going on? You going to have a party? What's going to happen?
We made a shirt, actually, a 15th anniversary Bronzeye shirt, and we sold them this year at the Classic for really cheap. And we're actually selling them on our website now, too. We will probably do some more promotion with that, and then also a special color. Stay tuned.
All right, there you have. I'm going to throw this out there real quick for Ryan in Kentucky. He goes, I know we're talking about frogs, but are there any new colors of rock crawlers getting ready to come out?
I actually have about 3 new colors of rock crawlers that we're working on right now. And we also have some different depths and variations of rock crawlers coming. So stay tuned.
All right, there you have it. Sid, man, thank you so much for taking time out. I know the Frog is definitely – I'm having – massive quantities of fun with the Frog right now. So on Lake X.
And your frogs are coming. They went out today.
Very nice.
All right.
I only had one frog left. That's all I had, man.
All right, man.
All right, Sid, thank you so much, man. Take care, and we will talk to you soon.
All right, fellas, we'll see you.
All right, there you have it, Sid Reeves, and we will be back after this short break with Dean Rojas. So everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The ultimate fishing system starts with Lowrance HDS Live. Upgrade to HDS Live with a Ghost trolling motor, live sight transducer, or Structure Scan 3D, and get up to $500 cash back.
Yeah, you care about gear ratios, inches per turn, and ball bearings, but most importantly, you want reliability and dependability in the equipment you use. Lew's doesn't cut corners when it comes to the gear they build. The new Speed Spool LFS is the best $99 reel in the market. Go see for yourself.
We've paired one of the most iconic hulls in the history of bass boats with a proven lineup of trusted accessories. We're bringing you best-in-class value and performance, leaving others in your wake. Turnkey value, turnkey performance. The Pantera 2 is an overachiever in the 19-foot category. Once you hit the throttle, you'll feel the rush, and there's no looking back.
Kevin, what are you doing here?
Oh, I'm just filling in for Billy.
I need 660 shad crankbaits in the Series 5 model.
We're out.
You're not out. You got all kinds of them right there.
We're out.
Kevin, I need 6.
Have a lollipop.
I do not want a lollipop.
Have a lollipop.
Do you have it the sexy shad color?
At Duckett Fishing, we have assembled the top pros in the country to help us design rods to give you a competitive advantage. Castability, strength, durability, action, sensitivity, weight and balance, and consistency. Combine that with the best warranty in the industry, and you have rods that are pro-driven.
Duckett Fishing, pro-driven.
Hey everybody, Todd Faircloth here. Want to show you one of my favorite braided lines, SX1 30-pound Sunline braid. I use this braided line for a couple of different applications, and one of my favorites to use for this line is a swim jig. Casts great, and it's small diameter, and just works really great on a swim jig. Another technique I like to use for 30-pound SX1 Sunline braid is whenever I'm flipping like a light, say an 1/8 to a 1/4 ounce weight in grass, small diameter, I don't lose much action on my worm, just works great in those scenarios. So if you're looking for a braided line for a swim jig or fishing a light Texas rig, check out Sunline's SX1 30-pound braid.
All right, we are back on a Tuesday. Mark Jeffries flying solo today. My partner, he is trying to get his truck fixed. So I'm flying solo, and we just had Sid Reeves on with SPRO. It is the 15th anniversary of the Frog, and we are going to go to our second special guest here just in a few minutes. Real quick, I want to let everybody know, I know that there have been some downloading issues with the iTunes podcast. I am currently working with the provider that we have that gets that information to iTunes, and we are working on that. So once again, I apologize. We got the YouTube stuff worked out, but now I'm trying to work with the company that is our provider for gathering all of our content for our iTunes stuff and every other podcast that we're on. So please bear with us as we work through those issues. We will do I'm doing everything I can to get that thing resolved because I know it's very irritating. Heck, it happened to me one time about 6 months ago. So please be aware that I am doing everything I can to work on that problem to make things much, much easier and much better from a download perspective when it comes to iTunes. All right, it is time to go to our second special guest of the day. He is en route to the K chain. Let's bring him in. Dino, you there, man?
How are you doing today?
All right. Well, I queued up the wrong channel there. You doing okay, Dean?
Yeah, I've got you, Mark.
All
How
right.
are you doing today?
Doing good, man. I'm flying solo. Matt, he is working on his truck probably as we speak, so I'm flying solo. And we just had your good friend Sid Rives on and kind of gave us a little bit of background, a little bit of history of the Frog, with this being the 15th anniversary of the Frog. And what I want to know right off the bat, Dino, what is your greatest memory in the beginning? Not as you progressed and won tournaments and did everything that you've done with the Frog. What is the one memory in the beginning that you remember that you're like, dude, this is the real deal. I can't believe what I just did on the water with the Frog. What was that memory?
Well, I have a lot of memories, Mark, about that, but it was more or less when I first discovered it is probably the biggest moment, because I realized at that moment that I had a tool that nobody else was doing. And I knew that if I could utilize this in different parts of the country, and I learned to like Lake Havasu there in my home, and if I could take that to all the different bodies of water that I fished throughout the country, that I would have a distinct advantage with that. Obviously, the bait that I was throwing at the time was just a snag proof. It was, it was not very good at the time, but it really told me how the fish reacted to the bait, and I learned the presentation part of it that would excite them to attack the bait, obviously, and then the evolution of it all coming around. But I've had thousands and thousands of incredible explosions and blow-ups throughout the 15 years of doing this, actually longer than that, 17, 18 years, there's some big ones that I remember, but nothing hit me as hard as when I actually did the technique and had 2 or 3 blow-ups on it, and it was incredible.
Wow. It's hard to imagine that it has been 15 years because this has been such an iconic bait through the history of bass fishing and tournament bass fishing, and it just seems like the time has flown by. And I asked Sid one question about where do you see the Frog 15 years from now? I'm going to ask you that same question. Where do you see it, Dino?
Well, I think that you're going to start to see more of a high performance bait now than what we have. When I first designed it, 15 years ago, for what we had for the components that we used was the very best at that time. Things are coming, into production to where I think we're going to build a better one, and it's very difficult because I feel like that is the perfect design, and for hookup ratio, and it, and the time, 15 years, it's the standard. It's the one that created all of it, and there's been a lot of copies of it. I know in my heart it's the best one on the market. So for me, in my heart, I know that it's going to be tough to do, but we have a lot of better material. We have things that are coming down the pipeline to where we can make it even better than what it is today.
All right, I got to ask you, you're headed to the cage chain for, the heavy hitters here coming up. How much is the Frog going to come into play?
Well, that's just, we're going to let the fish decide that. That's, obviously I'll have one tied on. I'll have multiple tied on. So, and, in this event, the points matter, but, ultimately, it's a lot of money on the line, and that's what we're fishing for. So I like events like this. We're going to a place that's got them, big fish, big floristry, And if we get the right conditions, and I know what the right conditions are, that will get those Florida strain going. So if we have something like that during the days that I fish, some great things could happen.
Dean, how important was Lake Havasu in the evolution of the frog, not only just from a development standpoint, but from a technique standpoint?
It was absolutely critical. I guess it just all lined up, Mark, because and it was taught to me by a gentleman that was taught to him by somebody down in the lower Colorado, where it dumps into Mexico, where they have a lot of cane. And a lot of people don't know what the cane is. It's a lot like the cane you would see down in Louisiana or the southern part, where the Mississippi dumps into the Gulf. It's that type of heavy cane, but it's on the river, so you have a lot of undercut bank. It doesn't grow in the water, but it acts as an umbrella. So the hardest thing, because that stuff is so thick, is getting a bait back in there. And that's where it all started, and how I learned how to do it. And then I utilized it on Havasu, fishing around tules, and bulrushes and grass and so forth. And there's, you have Havasu with the river system and all the backwaters and so forth, and you have a lot of shallow water cover. And then part of the lake in the Bill Williams where it's just stained water, a lot of tules, and the fish don't get real big there, but there's a lot of them. So you get a lot of bites. And you can go down there with a frog and just crush them. You catch 25, 30, in the afternoon or in the morning. And it's fun. But what it teaches you about is technique and lure placement, color, cadence. I mean, it teaches you everything that you could want to know about frog fishing. And so for me, whenever I have a new bait, I can't say, all the new baits got tested there on Havasu, but, some were better than others and really showcased how the fish attack the bait and how violent it is. And so for me, that's a good gauge, to take across country. And it doesn't matter Florida, or New York, where I want to know NIDA, and everything in between. It doesn't really matter. I mean, if there's shallow grass, shallow water cover, this bait's going to catch them.
Very nice. All right, Dean, what are some indicators that an angler, a fan, should throw a regular frog versus a popping frog?
Well, the easiest bait to throw, and I tell us to all the novice fishermen out there, is our popping frog. The popping frog's going to get a lot of bites. It's fairly easy to work because basically you just, kind of pop it along. You don't have to really create a whole lot of action to it because of the cup lip. It gives you that option of the bait working for you. Now, for the guys who are a little more advanced and like to, make or create their own cadence, obviously the Bronzeye Frog, the 65, is the baseline. It is the best frog on the market by far, and you can do whatever you want with that frog. You can walk it, you can chug it, you can just let it sit there, you can just whatever you want to do. It has everything that you would need. And so for me, it all dictates what body of water. If you're fishing around lily pads, I don't recommend a popping frog around that because the cup of the frog likes to grab onto the stems. And what you'll have is the frog wanting to dive down underneath the pad stems because the cup is grabbing everything. You would be better off throwing a Bronzeye that has a pointed nose. But if you're fishing grass that's submergent or a thin layer of grass on the surface, you want that popping frog. Because that popping frog is not going to get hung up on that stringy grass or in the little holes, but it's going to cause enough commotion to drive those fish out of the grass and come get the bait. And that's why the popping frog is becoming one of our most popular, because you can throw it in a lot of different circumstances over shallow water grass, which is predominantly throughout the whole United States. But we have our Bronzeye shad. That's a great walking bait. Our spit shad, it was awesome, which is a hybrid between our popping frog and our regular Bronzeye, which I really love because I can utilize both assets of the popping frog style and the Bronzeye. It's got great walking action, great hookup ratio, and you can do so much more with that frog for a little more advanced frogger that's the one that I would recommend.
All right, very nice. I know I told a story when we had Sid on the first time that you took me out, and we were at Gunnersville, and you said, hey, man, we're going to go catch some fish that are grouped up, and we ran about 20 minutes, and we started throwing the popping frog out in open water, and they were absolutely smashing it. It was the first time that I'd ever experienced anything like that with a frog, and I was just blown away. Blown away.
Yeah, that was one of the cool things about that time we were at Gunnersville when the shad spawn was going on, and it just shows you that how versatile that bait is. We were throwing a green tree colored frog on breaking fish, in and around matted vegetation because they were feeding on the shad. And the beauty of that is you're on braid, 65 or 80 pound sunline braid, and you don't have any trouble hooks to deal with. It's not going to get hung up in the grass. It's going to do everything that you want it to do because you're going to get a good hook set them and you just horse them on in. The catch up to ratio in time, that's a more efficient way to catch them than it would be on throwing a regular topwater walking bait.
All right, Blake in Georgia on the instant feedback wants to know, what is Dean's best bluegill imitating color other than killer gill?
Our red ear. The red ear is one that has the yellow bottom and the brown top, and it's got some beautiful colors on the side. That is a real popular color, especially down in Florida, because everything with a gold or orange belly down there does very well for a topwater bait. But also a lot of those bluegill, when they're spawning, they get that real bright yellow on the bottom of them. And they're, especially on the males, they get very colorful that time of year, and that's what you're emulating on that throw. So that would be my choice.
All right, there you have it, Dean. You guys are going to be fishing for a ton of money, dude. I've talked about this on the show. The way that things have developed because of the change in schedule, the amount of money each day that is going to be available to you guys. I'm curious, is it going to change the strategy and the way that you approach this heavy hitters event compared to other MLF events?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Mark. And I'm just going to let my practice, kind of play itself out. I hadn't been there since last year, so it's going to be, just a refresh course. But I also got to think about catching big bass, and so for me, I feel like I have the right baits and the mindset of how I want to approach it. But ultimately, that may not be what it's going to take. So just want to keep an open mind about it all. The money's great and everything, and it's a wonderful event. And I know everybody at Major League Fishing is very proud of the heavy hitters. It is a phenomenal reason to go after big ones, and it's been well received across the whole board. And to have the top 80 guys slugging it out to get their shot at trying to catch as many fish as they can, big ones. So a lot of money at stake. It's a high stakes bass fishing event, if you will. And what better way to have it in Florida? I mean, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. The money's going to be great. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Especially that final day, and I don't know how many people realize the biggest bass on that final day. If you're fortunate to earn a spot in that final day field, the biggest bass that day is going to be $100,000. Wow.
Yeah, that's unprecedented. I mean, there are big fish, contests like that.
Yeah.
But never on a televised live, feed type of deal where you're going to actually watch that gentleman catch $100,000 bass. And it could be a 4-pounder, could be a 10-pounder, could be a 13-pounder. I mean, you just don't know how big that fish is going to be.
Yeah.
But somebody's gonna win 100, on a big bass like that. So, pretty exciting, and that's the cool thing about MLF, just kind of mixing it up a little bit, trying something different, and it's getting has a lot of traction right now. So it's gonna be exciting to watch.
All right, Dino, last question, and I know there's been talks, there's been discussion, there's been rumors, but nothing has actually been put together to get some of the best, the greatest frog anglers in the world to actually have kind of, for lack of a better term, a winner-take-all kind of frog fish-off to where maybe the top 4 or 5 frog guys in the world come together and compete in a frog tournament, of which I think the fans would eat that up. I really believe that the 5 best frog anglers in the world competing against each other would be just an enormous event from a fan perspective. Even if there was no fans on the water or anything, I'm talking either on television or obviously live streamed, and each guy representing the companies that they represent from a frog perspective. Is there a snowball's chance in hell on down the road that we may see this? Would you be willing to participate in something like this, or is this just some kind of fantasy thing in the future that just has no chance of happening?
No, that's a great point there, Mark. You can call it Frog Fest.
Yeah,
I think that would be great to bring in, a group of us. The thing about it is you'd have to go somewhere where it was an equal playing field for everybody. You can't, because it's one technique, and you have to be able for the guys to be able to frog, and it has to be good. But I don't see why you couldn't do it. I like that. I think it would get a lot of great reviews. But, because if you don't, you have to have the right body of water for that, where everybody had a clean shot, because it's all about decisions, where you fish. If you just happen to pick the wrong bank to fish and you're getting creamed by somebody, that's a little unfair. I mean, you got to go total. You need both of them in the boat at the same time. You need 2 guys in the same boat at the same time. That way, if they're fishing a really good area, they're fishing it together, and they go toe-to-toe.
That would be cool. That's a good take. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they'd have to go old school, invitational, Bass Invitational type deal for it to work, because both guys would have the same shot, as opposed to them being in their own boat, and they're in different parts of the lake. So if you could designate, a frog area that's really good, we'll just, use it, wherever a really good lake is, and that section of lake is great for frogging. You put 2 guys in a boat and let them go at it, because at that point you're going to see each one of them's going to feed off the other. All right, and if they have different types of baits, frog baits, you're going to see which one the fish wants. So, and they can all incorporate their different, cadence or whatever they might do. And I think at that point, that would be a fair deal to have a comparison on the frogs and on the anglers.
I think it would be just a fantastic showcase for the fans, though. The fans would eat that up.
I agree with 100%, Mark. I think that would be awesome. Again, this is uncharted territory, which I like.
Yeah.
And it's new and exciting, and you build it up, and you've got 5 big guns or 6 big froggers. Man, let them go. Let them eat, man. And that's cool. That's what people want to see. They want to see the best guys doing a technique that they're really good at. Yeah. And that way, there's no question at that point, of who it is. But we're all good anglers. They're all good froggers. So it's just a matter of the hookup ratio and who's gonna bring them in. That sort of thing. So but the good thing, it would showcase rod selection, reel, line, baits, and everything that incorporates frogging, and that would be awesome.
Yeah, very cool. All right. From the instant feedback, Ryan in Kentucky wants to know, what is your favorite water temp or best water temp for throwing the frog?
It's a really good question. I like right around between 63 and 70 is the sweet spot. And I'll tell you why. Because you can catch them earlier on, when the water's cooler than that, but the window starts to is a lot smaller. Once that water temperature, like in the morning, if it's 63 and warms to 70 throughout the day, the majority of the fish in that body of water are pretty close to the bank. They're either spawning, getting ready to spawn, or post-spawn. And you have a lot of population of bass that are up there, and that's where you're going to get the most amount of bites. The second thing is you probably have the shad spawn going on as well during that time, which excites them even more to eat the bait. So that would be my optimum. 63 to 70 would be optimum. Anytime you get above or below that, it kind of gets a little. I think the window kind of closes in certain respects to the body of water.
Yeah. All right. Great stuff. Dino, man, like I said, I can't believe it's been 15 years, but hopefully 15 more and another 15 after that. It's an iconic bait that is so instrumental in tournament bass fishing and even fun fishing on the weekends for the weekend angler and anybody that gets an opportunity to throw a frog. It's just an exciting way to see that strike and catch fish, whether you're in a boat or in a bank. And many, many thanks for everything that you've done from a frog perspective.
Well, Mark, thank you for having me on the show today. And I want to just say a special thank you to SPRO and Gamakatsu, Sid, everybody over there, and that great company over there that's given me the freedom to, design the baits and the colors and everything, and all the great things that have come with that. And for the fans, all the memories and all the stories that I hear when you come talk to me about frogging, and how you caught your personal best, or you remember this 4-pounder, or my little kid now who didn't want to go fishing now wants to go fishing with me because he loves throwing the frog. I love hearing stories like that where, we've excited people to want to go fishing, and we showed them how to throw a bait that's not going to get hung up. And you're going to see some explosive, action, blow-ups, big catches, big fish, and it's a technique that we all love in topwater fishing. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And so to be able to do this for 15 years, I see another 15 to 20 or 30 in the future. I don't ever see it stopping, because it's a technique that will always be, in your arsenal, in the tool. And I'm so proud to be involved with SPRO and all their great, support with it. And I look forward to many years with them. And just can't thank them enough.
All right, Dino, be careful, man. Good luck at the K-Chain, and can't wait to see what's going to happen with you guys with a lot of money on the line over the next few days.
Well, thanks, Mark. I appreciate you on the show. I know Panger, this is the second time he's ditched me on the show the last
I know. What is that about?
So, I don't know. I don't believe in a word. I think he gets a little intimidated when I'm on the show with him. So, it's all right. I can say that because he's my friend, but
yeah, it's all good. All right, Dino, man, be careful. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Mark.
All right, man, see ya. There you have it, Dean Rojas. And wow, we don't do these kind of shows that often, but once again, I really, really believe that the frog is just one of those baits that probably everybody that fishes from kind of a marginal, serious standpoint to a serious standpoint, that they definitely have frogs in their boat. So many, many thanks to Sid Rives and Dean Rojas for coming on this special show. Tomorrow, Kelly J. We're going to talk a little Lake Eufaula. I'm sure I'm flying solo once again tomorrow. The other thing I'm going to throw in, folks, a little Sunline Hotline tomorrow. I want to hear from you. Since Matthew's not going to be here, you're going to get an opportunity to call in and talk to me. Ask me anything you want. We'll talk about frogging. We'll talk about tournaments. We'll talk about baits. We'll talk about basketball. We'll talk about anything you want. By the way, yesterday, first day back in the gym with the team. Man, it felt good. All right, you can't go up and down 5-on-5 or anything right now due to the restrictions, but it was really, really good to get back into the gym, working with the boys, trying to get ready for a good season here in 2020 and 2021. All right? Everybody, remember, I'm doing everything I can to get the situation corrected with iTunes. I will continue to do that today. And then we will be back. I will be back tomorrow with Kelly J right here, same time. That's it, folks. I'm out of here.